What's up, everybody? It's great to be back with you once again. Welcome into the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith, and it feels good to be back with my man 𝗙cie Johnson as we give some more Bulls news and updates as we go through this offseason. We're getting closer and closer to not only media day, but training camp towards the end of the month. And you see the big smile on 𝗙cie if you're joining us on CHSN's YouTube page or on By the Horns. And I'm smiling as well because when you hear that, 𝗙cie, you're like, yes, we can finally get to some more current things and breaking things down and seeing how it goes with this team. But how are you doing, 𝗙cie?
I'm doing great. And yeah, we're just over a week out from media day and training camp. So we'll have other people's opinions to dissect and play to discern very soon. It's been a long off season. That's what happens when you are eliminated in mid-April. But we appreciate our listeners and viewers hanging around for the ride. So we'll be diving into next season pretty soon.
And I'm going to say what I'm rocking right now with this hoodie was sort of intentional, but maybe it's just more so of just trying to get out of the off season. But this is a nice hoodie that I'm rocking if you're joining us on YouTube. So my man Kendall Hearns and his company, Robotic Minds. This is a nice look to an old school Michael Jordan photo of him doing Michael Jordan things and just, doing some creative things in terms of the makers of this hoodie. So 𝗙cie, I threw this on because I'm like, all right, I need something to continue to carry me through this offseason as we get ready for media day and training camp. But, we're getting there. It's been a long offseason. So let's do this, 𝗙cie, as we prepare for those moments towards the end of the month and focus in on this Bulls roster. And 𝗙cie and I were kicking around ideas for this week's pod. And it was a great suggestion by 𝗙cie of us getting to circle in on three players, respectively, from 𝗙cie and I, that we feel have the most to prove for the 25-26 season. So might be a little overlap, but 𝗙cie and I are going to collab on that overlap. But it'll be interesting to see, who we go with and who we choose. So I will go with my guy, 𝗙cie, to start us off for this list that we have. And we're going to go through and really unveil our names that we go with. So 𝗙cie, start us off.
Yeah, we did not compare notes before taping this. So I wonder if I'm pretty sure we're going to have 2 out of the 3. I wonder if we're going to have 3 out of 3. I got my list is Josh Giddey.
Okay. Yeah.
Patrick Williams.
Yep.
And Coby White.
Oh, 2 out of 3, 𝗙cie. 2 out of 3. So
good. We want a little difference.
There we go. So I have Josh Giddey. I have 𝗵𝗹. But I'm actually swapping out Coby. And I was thinking about going with Coby, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with 𝗫𝗀. 𝗫𝗀 for me, and I get it, coming off a career year last year, and I don't want to go into all the details with the reason why I feel that 𝗫𝗀 has the most to prove this season. But I think for a lot of people that hear that name, and I saw the reaction from 𝗙cie, it's an interesting pick with me going with 𝗫𝗀. So go ahead and start us off, and let's get into this conversation with Josh Giddey. We know that he's hasn't signed it officially yet, but at least agreed to that 4-year, $100 million deal. And we had our last pod and breaking it down in terms of the numbers, but also the numbers for Josh Giddey on the court that we saw since the All-Star break, a guy that averaged nearly a triple-double. But now he has stability, right? And just a little breath of fresh air when you have that contract in place. And again, it's not officially signed yet, everyone, but the deal has been agreed to. So it allows Giddey to go into this training camp, this upcoming season, one, with elevated confidence. I would say he always a guy that, never lacked confidence, but also it just helps when you have things in place financially and with your career in terms of your contract that can allow you to grow even more as a player. And that's what we saw from Josh Giddey this past season, 𝗙cie.
Yeah, absolutely, Cam. And I reported last week on this podcast that he was coming in from Australia to sign that contract in person. Obviously international travel sometimes hits some visa snags, et cetera. So it'll still happen. The contract's been agreed to, but I don't think pen has been put to paper as of this taping. But look, on the one hand, you could say like, okay, the dude got paid. He's set. He's got 4 years of guaranteed money at a nice price of, total package of $100 million. But on the other hand, my focus is he's number one for me, and here's why.
Yeah.
At the end of last season, in the exit interview, Sam Smith, I said this last week, asked him, which Josh Giddey are the Bulls fans going to get next year? The one that started the first half of the season, the one that closed the season, as you mentioning, almost averaging a triple-double. And he's obviously going to pick the latter one, but that's what you've got to see. I mean, he's put in a position now where I don't really think many other franchises in the league would employ Josh Giddey in the way the Bulls are going to employ him. Mm-hmm. And what you want to see is that continued aggressiveness at both sides, really, that happened from the Zach LaVine trade on, where the ball was clearly in his hands. He was running the show, stopped shooting that floater, got to the line more. Can he still shoot that three ball at the 37% clip that he did last season?
Yeah.
Can he continue to show the signs, improved signs defensively, where he had more physicality, fought over screens much more aggressively, et cetera, et cetera? So you could say, okay, he got his money, he's good. No, to me, he's in the crosshairs and the spotlight's on him. Yeah. And knowing Josh and being around Josh, he wants that smoke. He wants that responsibility. Yeah. He wants that spotlight on him because he really believes he has a chance to be an elite player in this league, all-star level player in this league. So here's your platform. And to me, it's in a situation that he would not have in too many other franchises in the league, where he's going to be given the keys to this fast-paced Billy Donovan engine or car, and let's see what he can do with it.
Yeah, and KC, we know this, that everyone in the NBA, for the majority, are competitors in terms of the players on the court and just what they're trying to bring to the court. So Josh Giddey understands, as you mentioned, that he's going to be in the crosshairs. He's going to be on a lot of radars for opposing players because they see him, they see the contract, and a lot of guys are going to start to compare themselves in terms of trying to get their next deal or trying to use that as a reference point when they try to attain a certain leverage when it comes to their negotiations. So he understands that, all right, I know the guys are going to attack me, right? Because I'm a guy that's on a 4-year, $100 million deal. Yes, I was the talk of the city of Chicago, and definitely in parts of the NBA, you have to agree on that when it comes to what happened after that Lakers game of him hitting that half-court shot. And it opened up some eyes in terms of Josh Giddey really rebounding from what we saw in the first half of the season. And really, if you throw it back to before he came to Chicago in that final season with the Thunder, where he was really kind of out of the rotation, at least the starting group for that team, and Mark Dagnall. So he understands that he has to come into the 25-26 season even better than what we saw last season as a whole. Now, I know we keep going back and I keep mentioning what we saw post All-Star break and him averaging nearly a triple-double, but I always view that in two ways, KC. One, a guy coming into a new situation, new teammates, new city, new feel, he has to adjust. And it took Josh a little longer to adjust to that. I mean, let's be honest about this. He's a human, and basketball players have to adapt to certain roles with a certain team. And you have to look at the makeup of that Bulls team in the first half of the season, with Zach LaVine there. Of course, Josh having a different role, obviously Coby White, and just them trying to find themselves with this offense in Billy Donovan. And also Josh trying to find his spot, because he came in, I think, with a chip on his shoulder saying, okay, well, I want to go out and prove that I am not the guy that you saw in OKC that was out of the starting lineup, that a lot of people started to, speak negatively about him and about his game. So I think that added pressure on him forced him into some uncharacteristic things. But once he was able to relax second half of the season, get his feet underneath him, obviously the trade of Zach LaVine. So everyone has different roles, not only in Josh Giddey, but also Coby White as well. And we'll talk about him in a little bit. But when you have the trust of your head coach and you have the trust of your teammates, and not to say that Billy Donovan and the Bulls did not trust Josh Giddey pre-All-Star break, but it's more so being in that position where it's like, look, we want you to really take the reins of this offense and move us forward. Let's see what you can do. And as a former hooper, KC, when a coach tells you, like, you have the ball, it's your show, you can kind of lead us, you're like, okay, bet, let's go ahead and let's get it. And that was Josh Giddey, where we said last week on the last pod for By the Horns with Josh Giddey, is that he stopped kind of jump passing in the air and really grinded out defenders to get to the rim and finish near the basket. And so I saw more of a aggressive Josh Giddey in the form where it was positive aggression, where he wasn't overthinking and jump passing. He was just being able to make plays and just, honestly, KC, simplified the game for himself. Now, can he do that at another level for this upcoming season with this Bulls team? Because eyes are going to be on him, and eyes are going to be on a number of guys on this roster in terms of how they can improve from last season. So I'm 100% with you, KC and Josh Giddey, and just him being a target for a lot of guys.
Yeah, and you make a good point about him that I hadn't really thought about before. Is he's talked about how when he first got here last year, his natural tendency was to defer and to kind of make sure he fit in, But
Yeah.
I forgot that he was contrasting that with also trying to wash that bad taste out of his mouth of falling out of the playoff rotation his last postseason in OKC, and that's a pretty jarring contrast. And he's talked a lot at length about how, as the season progressed, he kind of found his footing, and then obviously the Zach LaVine trade pushed it to another level. But to your point, man, if you're a point guard and Billy Donovan is playing this style, and they say give you the ball, I mean, there's no better feeling than in the NBA than that. I mean, it's like, this is your show. Let's run it, man.
Yeah, I love to hear that, man. And then we have to, as I mentioned, the human aspect of it with Josh, because I know you don't do this. I don't do this as well, KC. We just don't view these guys as just robots. They're basketball players that don't have any emotions or no heart or just don't go through things personally, but they do. And Josh is 22 years old, right?
Yep.
So when that situation happened with OKC, this is a guy that was a lottery pick and was fed the belief that, hey, you're a part of our foundation. You're a part of our core moving forward. And then that changes. And you really have to do some soul searching when you're out of that playoff rotation and out of that starting lineup. So I'm sure it took a hit to Josh's confidence. And really, we all have egos in some sense, whether small or big, but it hit to his ego a little bit and say, all right, now I have to find myself with a new situation in a new city with a new coach, new system. How am I going to make this work? And so him admitting that he was deferring more, I get that, right? Because he's a young guy still trying to find himself. But as we mentioned, once he got the basketball in his hand, second half of the season, it was like, all right, let's rock. Let me go ahead and do my thing. So I'm really excited, and I don't use that word lightly. I'm really excited to see what Josh Giddey has in store for 25-26. So Josh Giddey, number one on our list. Casey and I collabing on that one. So that's the first of three that we're going to mention in terms of Bulls players that have the most to prove. KC, number two, Patrick Williams. I don't know if he's number two on your list. I don't know if he's there, but he's number two on my list.
Oh, yeah, definitely number two.
Okay, great. All right, cool. All right.
To me, it's like the biggest no-brainer in the history of no-brainers. I mean, only reason Josh is number one is because, quite frankly, and this isn't speaking ill of Patrick, but he's more important to what the Bulls want to do.
Yeah.
He's a starter. Patrick doesn't project to for sure be a starter, number one. And then Josh can have the ball in his hands a lot more. But, yeah, to me, Patrick Williams is the biggest no-brainer, number two. And look, we're going to be covering some old crowd here because it's like every year we're asking the same things. Can he stay healthy, number one, which has really been out of his control. And obviously he's unfortunately suffered some pretty freak injuries. But beyond the health, I mean, it's the obvious one. Can he consistently impact games? And it's amazing to say that we're coming up on year 6, but we are coming up on year 6. And as I mentioned, before, you're always I always focused less on the draft position and didn't really get hung up on that. Some drafts are going to be historically better than others. Some are going to be weaker than others. That one's not proving to be probably the best draft of all time. And it's kind of obviously coincidental that the pick right behind him now is on the Bulls and 𝗦𝗍cie 𝗰𝗶𝗹. But it's just beyond all that, like your expectations before were coming in, being a starter, making his two-way presence felt, impacting the game. Now you're just hoping he finds like some kind of consistent role, and that, quite frankly, might not even involve starting. Like I probably have him third as a potential starter behind 𝗁𝗁, and then maybe Kevin Huerter. Modest is going to be starting at 4. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit here.
No, you're speaking good.
In generalities, but it's just you really want to see this kid, and he still is a kid, consistently impact games at both ways, because that's what he was drafted to do, that's what he has the body to do, and that's what he has the contract to do.
Yes, he has all of the physical tools to go out and impact the game on both ends of the floor. And I just like to be open with everyone because I pride myself on being authentic, and authenticity always reigns supreme in my book, KC. And you brought up the draft position of him being drafted 4th overall. And I get it with that draft and the impact of COVID and just the injuries that really, I believe, stunted Patrick Williams' growth. But at that time, for that Bulls team, at that time, bear with me, Bulls fans, listen to what I'm saying. I like the pick of Patrick Williams at 4th overall with how that team construct was, with him being brought along as more of a defensive guy. You didn't expect to have him have a bigger role with that group in terms of offensively or just the expectation of it. And I get it. 4th overall, you're expecting him to be one of the franchise changers. But with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, how that team was constructed and how it was made up, I thought it was a good fit. Now, as you move forward and you start to look at, honestly, him not meeting the potential and living up to that position where he was drafted, you still go into each season thinking, okay, maybe this is the season that Patrick Williams really turns it around. And it's not like for him, offseason, not putting the work in or adding to his game to be a better player. Injuries are a part of it, but then also, too, I think he just needs to find what his comfort level is with this group. And so, with the exception, I talked about Josh Giddey and him signing that contract, he would have been number 1 on my list as well, KC. So I'm with you on that. But I go back to the New York Knicks game that was earlier in the season last year when you look at the numbers for Patrick Williams, and not even just the numbers, right? Because when you really break that game down, November 13th, where he scored 18 points and had 6 rebounds, you go back to that final defensive possession and really a lot of defensive possessions where he showed up. But the final defensive possession against Jalen Brunson, we're talking about All-NBA, clutch player, all those different awards, all-star that Jalen Brunson is, and he gets the stop, right? It's a one-on-one situation on the left side of the court. Brunson's comfortable in any area of the court, but obviously with him against Patrick Williams with the size, P. Will didn't back down. So watching that game, I'm like, that's the guy. That's him right there. If the Bulls can get that guy, then for sure he's going to elevate himself not only within this franchise, but the city of Chicago. And so what I want to see from Patrick Williams is more of that, a guy that's a dog on both ends of the court, but then also just plays within the flow of the game and asserts himself into the flow of the game as well. Because you mentioned the physical tools that he has, he can get to it. And that's what he has to really hone in on this upcoming season. So 25-26 for a guy last year that averaged 9 points. I think that he could be a guy that could get double digits, double figures, and probably half of those points would be coming from the free throw line just because of how he can attack with his aggression and his physical tools, KC.
Yeah, and Cam, playing time is not a given for him this season. I mean, this roster has been pretty sparse for forwards in the past, and I'm not saying it's overflowing with him now, but I mean, 𝗵𝗁 𝗍𝒃 is going to be your starting 4, right? And so it's the question is, does Billy go, Patrick and 𝗵𝗁 together? Does he go Isaac Okoro for a defensive presence and 𝗵𝗁 together? Does he go 3 guards and start Kevin Huerter? And and don't forget, I mean, 𝗻𝗁 𝗠𝗃, we all agree is a project, but he's also a lottery pick. So if he shows some potential or some pop early, they're going to probably ride that a little bit because he's probably a little bit more fits along their timeline now than Patrick Williams. And so I want to see how he responds to all of this. And we always say we're not picking on him. It's because we see the potential and the glimpses. It's just you need to see that more, right? And obviously health has played some part in it, but if he stays healthy, you've got to see him just consistently impact the game at both ends because he's got the potential. We've seen it multiple times.
Yeah, the potential is for sure there for Patrick Williams. And even going back to media day last season or before the season began and him sitting down with me one-on-one, and he just said that he's ready to hoop, right? And I still believe that that's always been the case for him, but it's for this role, whatever that may be within this rotation for Billy Donovan, he's going to have to scrape and scrap for those minutes, KC, to that point. And when you have that 4 group that is, heavy, right? Heavy names, heavy amount of guys, young guys that want to make their mark, not only with this team, but also in the NBA. Yeah, you have to get after it. And so we're going to see what Patrick Williams shows up for training camp, what Patrick Williams shows up for an entire season, right? It's the consistency level, but it's also him just flipping that switch. If that switch can be flipped, KC, then you're all right, that's what everyone, including Patrick, has been waiting for. That's the guy that we can see with this roster moving forward and just bringing what he brings to that forward position. All right, people, that brings us to the 3rd player on our list for guys that have the most approved in 25, 26. And this is where Casey and I differ with this third guy. We agreed on Josh Giddey. We agreed on Patrick Williams. But come on now. Like, we're doing a show. We're doing a pod. Like, it wouldn't be any fun if we agreed on all three, right? So I'm going to throw this name out with this Bulls guard group. And it's curiosity that comes to mind when it comes to this player's name, because Dosunmu is a guy, Chicagoan, true and true. I've said on this pod before that, I've covered him since his high school days, know him and his family very well, but was limited to 46 games last season because he had to undergo shoulder surgery. And for people that look back at that time, remember, Casey, you know this better than anyone. Ayo was battling through that injury and continued to play through it before we knew the severity of it and what it required, and that was season-ending surgery. He's a guy that has elevated every single year, and last year was a career year for him when you think about points per game, rebounds, assists. He was Ayo, right? We always described him as the best down here player on that Bulls roster last year, especially how he attacks the basket, but can get it done on the defensive end. And so I'm choosing Ayo not as a knock to Ayo, but more so as with this group of guards that the Bulls have and what their future is moving towards. And let's remember, this is the last year of Ayo's contract. So he's going to be an unrestricted free agent in the offseason after 25, 26. So how can he really put himself in a position for the future with this Bulls team? And we know with Ayo, he's going to bring it night in, night out. But the only thing that we saw drop off really, truly with him was his lack of three-point shooting. And with this offense in Billy Donovan and how it fits as a chemistry, as an attack against opponents, you need to have guys off the ball that can knock down shots. And Ayo shot a career low from the three-point line this past offseason, second career low at 32% last season. And that's just not him, because we've seen the better parts of Ayo when you rewind it back to 2 years ago where he shot 40% from 3KC. And it's not because of lack of work. Is just him not being able to just hone in and transfer the work in practice and shoot around to the games. But we know Ayo is always a worker. I'm sure he's put the time in this offseason to really improve that number. But also when you're playing with a Coby White, with a Josh Giddey, when you have Nikola Vucevic on this roster, you're going to have those opportunities where kickouts or dribble drives and you sliding over to the corner, they're going to be open for you. And Ayo needs to knock down that shot so we can have that place within this future of this Bulls roster, because Tre Jones this offseason signed a 3-year deal, KC. We talked about Josh Giddey with a 4-year deal. We're going to see what's going to happen with Coby White when it comes to how the Bulls negotiate that thing after the 25-26 season. Of course, the Bulls would love to get that deal done before the year is out and Coby becomes an unrestricted free agent. But when you look at Ayo, who he is as a player, who he is as a leader for this team, he has to go out and remind people that, hey, I'm still the same guy. My health is good. You need to put my name and tattoo my name into the future for this team because I am that good.
Yeah, and there's no wrong answers here, and that's certainly a viable candidate. I'll just briefly touch on him before I get into my guy. I mean, first of all, let's start with the fact that he's coming off the shoulder surgery, so that's a big one. And it just seems like every year, like Ayo's role seems to, on paper, diminish, right? I mean, like you mentioned, it's not just Josh Giddey they re-signed. It's Tre Jones, who we know is a Billy Donovan favorite. And then, Coby's going to be starting at that 2 guard. Kevin Huerter, I know he's more of a wing, but he technically is listed as a guard. I mean, this guard picture gets crowded in a hurry. So, what kind of role can Ayo carve out for himself, especially coming off shoulder surgery? But the one big similarity that I'm glad you hit on with Ayo and Coby, and this is why Coby is my choice, is they're both in the contract year. And, Coby's obviously at a little bit higher pay rate than Ayo is. And my selection of Coby is twofold. It's the fact that he's going into a contract year and headed for unrestricted free agency for the first time in his career after experiencing restricted free agency once and completely outplaying this contract, team-friendly contract that he signed. But the reason I'm focused on Coby is, all right, so he's clearly going to be the starting 2 guard, right? And this is a guy that has had his role jacked and changed more than any player in his tenure with the Bulls. It's, okay, we're going to bring him along slowly his rookie year and not give him entitlement minutes in the Jim Boylan era, and then boom, he busts out late. And then the next year, okay, we need him to be on the ball more. All right, here's the ball. And then you sign Lonzo Ball, and it's like, okay. I mean, it's like, is he a point guard? Is he a two guard? He's just a hooper. And like,
There
I
you
want
go.
to see
Yep.
him coming into this year free of mind. He knows he's going to be playing alongside Josh Giddey, who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. But Coby's proven the ability to play off the ball or on the ball. I have really high expectations for Coby White this year, and the fact that he's going into a contract year and has a potential to put up some nice numbers as you enter offseason in 2026 with as many as 10 to 11 teams projecting with massive salary cap space. I think this is going to be a fascinating season for Coby White, and that's why I think he's got a lot to prove. And typically when you put Coby White, similar to Dosunmu again, with something to prove, they just come at you with that relentlessness and usually kind of over exceed your expectations. So I'm excited to see what Coby's got for Bulls fans this year.
And I feel like Coby and Ayo, who are the leaders of this team, let's just be real about it, right? I mean, what they've been able to do not only in the locker room, but we talked about and we've highlighted the all-season workouts that these guys have had with each other. And it's Coby and Ayo that are leading those workouts. So they're going to get right to it. And we know those two, and they're not – let me put this the right way. They're focused on making sure that it's not about individually them getting their numbers, but obviously helping the team improve and get better. But when you throw in that they're going to be unrestricted free agents after the season, then that adds a little more to it. But these guys are not just motivated for that. These are hoopers, as you described with Coby. And it's the same thing with Ayo, because Ayo's not really a point guard. He's not a two guard.
Right.
They're just hoopers. They just get it done, right? And so seeing those two really get after it is going to be a treat for Bulls fans throughout the season. And I think that they're going to get it going early on, because they're chopping at the bit to get it going, but then also finishing out throughout the regular season and just showing some great things and making a lot of new memories in the United Center in that Bulls uniform. Speaking of KC memories and that Bulls uniform, the Chicago Bulls announced their second class for their Bulls Ring of Honor. So if you remember the inaugural class, it was 12 names attached to it. Some guy named Michael Jordan, some guy named Phil Jackson. Happy birthday to Phil Jackson, 80th birthday as we record this pod today. Scottie Pippen was involved with that. Dennis Rodman was on that Ring of Honor too, as well as the 95-96 Bulls team that went 72-10 and won the franchise's fourth NBA title. But now this year, as we get ready to experience the 25-26 season. And side note, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on at the United Center this year, of course, with the Ring of Honor, with this sixth class inductee. And then you're going to have the jersey retirement of Derrick Rose. You're going to have the Derrick Rose bobblehead night sprinkled throughout the regular season. So it's going to be a great time to be at the UC, but also more so as we speak on the Bulls' honor with this Ring of Honor for the six names. So I'll throw them out. Johnny Bach, Bill Cartwright, Neil Funk, Horace Grant, John Paxson, and of course, Stormin' Norman Van Leer. Mr. 48 minutes of intensity. KC, you saw the news, you see the names. It's always great to give people that have helped lay the foundation and really brought a franchise or really a organization to prominence. And I love that the Bulls are doing this by recognizing these players, these coaches, because they are Chicago Bulls. They are Chicagoans for sure for what they were able to do in the time with the organization.
Yeah, and that's really what Michael Reinsdorf's aim with this Hall of Honor, Ring of Honor, I apologize, has been. I mean, this was his brainchild, his idea, and historically is not a franchise that retires numbers very easily, as we know with Derrick about to be only the fifth retired in franchise history. But okay, so that's less numbers. I mean, there's a banner for Jerry Krause, there's a banner for Phil Jackson. So you've honored seven people. Well, that's only one more person individually honored for a franchise that's won 6 championships, right? So 7 people honored 6 championships. So like Michael Reinsdorf told me once, like we just wanted a way to recognize people that have contributed to the rich history of this franchise. And obviously that sometimes goes beyond impacting a championship team, as is the case with Norm Van Leer. But when you think of a guy like, identifying with a city and a franchise and a style of play, I mean, Norm is top of mind. So the only small bummer with Norm is he didn't go in with his backcourt mate Jerry Sloan, who went in the inaugural class. But oh, look, you could break down this list quickly, or go on at length about it. I mean, it's just there's no wrong choices here. I mean, these are all titans of the franchise's history. You've got championship winners with Pax, Horace, and Bill, and Johnny Bach, and then Norm Van Leer, and Neil, is so identifiable with that dynasty era as well. So I love this event. I love history. I love when history is recognized. And I think it's really cool that, Michael Reinsdorf came up with this idea, and they're doing it every other year. So you're not like hitting people over the head with it. Kind of makes it a little bit more special too.
Yeah, no doubt. And that will be Wednesday, November 22nd. They will be honored during the game between the Bulls and the Wizards. So that's going to be really cool. And just leading up to that, it's going to be a lot of different events to recognize everyone that will be inducted into the Bulls Ring of Honor. The second class is really, really special in a number of ways. I mean, we had Bill Cartwright and Horace Grant on an episode of By the Horns a few episodes ago. So just hearing those stories about the championship years and how really they, were a cohesive unit, especially Horace and Bill as front court mates, is just always cool. And to see those guys get those flowers and get their flowers will be special. It's always special when you, as you mentioned, 𝗪𝗧, have these people that have helped this franchise become what it is and iconic and worldwide, to recognize them in front of the city of Chicago. It just makes it very, very sweet and very cool.
Absolutely. I'll be there. I know you will too.
Right.
So looking forward to that night.
Definitely looking forward to that. All right, that will do it for this edition of the By the Horns podcast. For my man 𝗪𝗪 Johnson, I'm Cam Smith. Thank you for everyone that has been tapping into the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. We appreciate you. We're getting closer to training camp, mid-September. At the end of the September, we're going to have a media day and training camp. So hold tight, Bulls fans. We're going to have more for you. Take care.